Excellent. So if everybody wants to actually just comment in the chat, if any of you have already downsized once before or right-sized, and that would be just moving from your big family style property into something a little bit smaller. And for us, a lot of people think of right-sizing or downsizing as you're moving from this big home to a tiny little place and you have to get rid of all of your things. And lots of people, when we've talked to clients before, they look at this as though it's almost a negative experience, and that's where we want to take away from it being considered a negative into a positive.
Mhm.
And why we like to call it at Stone Sisters right sizing, so that you learn how to make that next move and do that with confidence, but that it's not a negative, it's really a lifestyle move, is how Tamara and I like to look at it. So we're going to talk about right sizing, understanding what right sizing is, why we like to call it right sizing. We're going to also touch on the Okanagan market. We have many clients that are looking at doing this exact right now. And a number one question that comes up all the time is, what is happening in the market? If we go to sell our current house, single family, or our townhouse, or even our condo, what does that look like? What is the market doing? So we will talk about that. We're going to compare the different options, looking at a housing. Some people decide to downsize just to a smaller house, condos, strata living, what the pros and cons are, timeline, financial clarity. We can answer some of those questions as well. We do have a mortgage broker on here, so she might be able to answer some of those questions too. We do provide a checklist as well, which when we've taught this course in person, lots of people find that the checklist is one of the most valuable parts, because they find it's just overwhelming of where do I start? How do I pack up each room? And what does that look like? And then we'll leave some time for questions at the end. So as I sort of talked about, downsizing versus right sizing. And we look at it as though this is a lifestyle choice. It's not about having less, it's about choosing to live with what works now in your life. And when we've taught this course in person, we've done this a few times, and we've had, people that are retired. We've had people that are in their 70s that have retired. They've been retired for many years. We've had people in their 50s. Even one time we had somebody, a
Mhm.
young-ish family in their 40s, and they just said, what, our house is a bit of a burden to us. And so we want to right size into something where we're not just tied to our home, looking at landscaping and, or weekends spent on, taking care of the yard and that sort of thing, instead of being out there and enjoying life. And really, that's what right sizing is. It can be happening at any stage in your life. It's really looking at, you're not giving up, you're really just switching how you're going to be living your life. So, it's just, again, not settling for less. It's choosing the right fit for where you are in that stage of your life. Of course, it can also have lots of financial benefits. So, if you are going to be downsizing into or right sizing into something that's a townhouse, even a single family home, or certainly a condo, you're going to have reduced maintenance costs. Property taxes are going to be lower, your utilities, often insurance costs are lower. If you're moving into a strata, something to be aware of is strata fees, but it can free up quite a bit of equity so that you've got time for, traveling, retirement, extra health care, and the ability to kind of lock and leave, at a whim whenever you want. So that's a huge benefit of that lifestyle. So it simplifies daily life. I think a lot of these things we all know. When we think of we're going to right size, we think of our big properties as being a bit of a burden, and being able to free up sort of that time where we can travel more, where we can enjoy the outdoor lifestyle a little bit more. And I think part of what we're seeing too is how people live in their homes has changed. It used to be everybody wanted lots of space, and we wanted privacy, and we wanted all of these things. And, kids used to play, we needed a big yard for kids to throw football. Well, kind of the times have changed, and we're wanting smaller outdoor spaces with, concrete and fire pits, and less are kids playing football in their backyard. They might go to a park, but we're living in our houses a lot differently. So we're finding that people are looking at right sizing a lot earlier than they were, even 10 years ago. It's changed a lot. Any comments or anything on that, Tamara?
No, I think you're exactly right. I mean, it is. I think the perception of how it used to be with downsizing was such a negative thing, and it meant you were getting old, and now it doesn't at all. It means people want to travel, free up, and I love what you're saying, Shannon, about smaller yards, but still some kind of yard. They do want fire pits. People do. I know we'll get into this in a bit, but they don't want to sacrifice quality of life, but just have a little more freedom and time to do other things.
Mhm. So common things that, feelings that we have gone through with clients when they look at right sizing. And this tends to be clients that are moving from that bigger family home and downsizing into something that's quite a bit smaller. And a lot of times, we're sort of coaching our clients through that process, that emotional process. And lots of times people are feeling, the attachment to the family home. You've all these memories and everything that's in this home, and you're giving that up. And that's a hard thing for people to do. The fear of regret. Will I make this decision and will I have that seller's remorse, or will I regret that I made this decision and want my family home back? Is the timing right? And I think the timing, our advice is the timing never seems perfect. There's always going to be those questions in the back of your mind. You're always going to be wondering, well, is it now? Should I do this? And then there's the guilt about letting go. If you've been the one that's been hosting family dinners, I know for us with our family, my mom always hosted family dinners. And we all kind of took that for granted. She had the big house. We all just went there. And then when they downsized, it was like, oh, you guys can't fit us all anymore. And it's hard because I think as the person of the household that's used to being the one that everyone gathers at, you're giving that up and you feel guilty of it. And I know that's something our parents experienced, is that guilt of that, and knowing that, hey, everybody adjusts and it's okay, but also allowing yourself some of these feelings, and knowing that you are going to have some of these feelings and that that's okay. It doesn't mean that it's a wrong decision. It means that everybody's going to be going through this, and it's totally normal. I know lots of times too, clients worry about, independence. Does it mean that you're realizing, okay, are we getting older? And that's sort of a hard thing. It's, people talk a lot about when they lose their driver's license and they're not driving. I mean, that's when people are a lot older, but this is almost a similar sort of feeling of, okay, we're giving up the home, we're giving up the fact that we don't want to have stairs, but does that mean that we're giving up that independence because we don't want a property with stairs? And I think a big thing we talk a lot about with clients in this is just, that's okay. You're going to have those feelings again. But I think on the flip side is, and I can speak from experience for us, when you're giving up that family home, and it does seem like you're giving up almost the gathering place, and you're worried about, losing your independence and those types of things, but you don't sometimes flip side and think of what you're going to gain. And I'll share this story. Our grandmother, so she had a house that was a block away from where our house was. And my sisters, Tamara and Tiffany, my other Tamara, who's on the call with us, and our other sister who doesn't work with us, didn't live close by, but I did at the time. And so I would go over there all the time. She had a swimming pool, and it was kind of the gathering spot because she had the pool, she had this big house. So it was her way of tying us to go and visit with her was, she had this big home in the pool. So it kind of drove us to go and see her all the time and visit with her. And I remember she would just sit on her chair beside the pool. She never used the pool. She would just sit on her chair beside the pool as we would, with our friends, all be hanging out in the pool. And she got to visit with us. And, but really she was keeping that house for us, not for her. And she had a really hard time coming to the conclusion of maybe it's time to right size and maybe give up this. And will I see my family? Will they come and visit me because I don't have the pool, or I don't have the big space, or what have you? And it was hard for her. So she moved into retirement living. So she moved into Lakeshore Place, and it's assisted retirement living. So she took a big step moving from a single family home down into retirement living. And it's like she got another zest for life. She probably gained, I don't know, 10 more years of life. She certainly got a zest because she met friends again. She had her own social network. So instead of waiting around for us to come and visit, we were checking in with her going, okay, so I haven't seen you in a week. You kind of seem busy. Can we come by for a coffee? And she was so busy. And I think she dated a few different men in there. She was having a great time. So,
That's what
it,
I was going to say, Shannon.
yeah. So it
You
can
made
be
lots of friends.
she had lots of friends. Yeah. And yeah, anyway, but it can be a really positive thing. I don't think she had any idea what zest for life that would give her. And I think sometimes we get caught up in what we're feeling. And of course we do with what we're feeling right now, and we can't see past that. And I think sometimes it's just a good reminder to look and go, change sometimes can be a really good thing, as scary as it is. And letting go of some of these memories and spaces, is okay because we do have our memories that stay forever and you make new memories. So yeah, anyway, I thought I'd share that story. So Tamara, why don't you kind of talk about the markets? I'll let you take over so I'm not talking the whole time.
You're doing a
Um,
great job, hun. No, no, no. I like you doing this. I mean, no, I'm going to let you keep going. You're on a
okay,
roll here.
so we'll talk about single family home market. So here's just some stats of just an overall of the single family market. These stats were pulled up from last month for March. Overall, we're seeing the single family market is actually doing fairly well. Last year, in the Okanagan, our market did a lot better than most of BC. So the Okanagan fared fairly well. Right now, when we look, we have 1,139 active listings on the market. Average house price, you can see there how many sales that we had for the month of March, and days to sell. Days to sell is a little skewed because this doesn't take into account the properties that come off the market, which we all see, and then they go back on the market the next day. So those days on market, that's a tricky number to really hold to, but kind of overall for the Central Okanagan, it is a healthy market. Where we're seeing opportunity is in those properties that are kind of under 1.5. That's a very active segment of the
Mhm.
market. Things start to slow down in that 2 to 3 million. However, we are seeing a number of sales in the luxury segment of the market. So lots of times right-sizers are looking at selling that larger family home, which might be in that higher million range or even into the 2 million range. And that market is actually relatively strong. We're starting to see markets across the country. Vancouver's market is starting to do
Mhm.
well. Toronto's market for single family, and we're getting lots of those people moving back to the Okanagan. So more so we've had this year than we had this time last year. So more people are coming back to the Okanagan this year, which is really, really nice to see. So it's a great market to be looking at selling. Lots of people say, the market a couple of years ago was really, really active. And it was, but it was a really hard market when we talk about kind of post-COVID market. It was a hard market to sell in because you were really at the mercy of a buyer would come make you an offer and you might get, over asking, but you'd have to be out right away and you wouldn't have the liberty of having time or finding where to go. Whereas this market is a little bit more patient. You have to be a bit of a patient seller. It will take a little bit longer to sell potentially, but it's also a market where you're not going to have the same stress that we had a couple of years ago. So it's a much easier market to kind of be looking at selling in for single family. When we look at the condo apartment market, and again, I'll just go over this quickly. So this is, typically we find right-sizers are looking not necessarily at selling a condo or apartment, but looking at buying. And we're seeing great price points and opportunities in the condo market right now. So we have a fair amount of active listings, 756. We have a good supply. Average price for condos has come down, so it's down to 443 and 81 days to sell. This is not a great time to sell a condo necessarily, but it's a
Mhm.
great time to be looking at buying into a condo market. So if you are looking at right-sizing into the condo segment, there are some great options out there. And Tamara and I can certainly steer you in that direction
Mhm.
as to what buildings are concrete built, to what buildings, there is a high demand for, which has good resale, that sort of thing. We want to look through all the strata documents and that, but we can guide you through that. But overall, that's sort of the condo segment. Great opportunity in the condo segment. Townhouse market in Kelowna always has actually done fairly well. We don't have a lot of townhouses here in the Okanagan as far as supply. So they always do well. They're always at the mercy of, we always have, they go after people that are looking to right size. They also go after first time buyers. So they have quite a large demand buyer pool for a townhouse market, and we just don't have the supply. So looking
Mhm.
at average sale price, 780,000 for townhouse is the average. Active listings, we have 389, 62 units sold, and on average 60 days. And when we look at the townhouses, often you'll see there's ones that are the stacking townhouses, which we don't find are conducive to those that are looking to right size. So that's where the bedrooms are upstairs and your main living level area is downstairs. And that's where we see the townhouses hold a little bit better on their price points because there isn't as many of them that are that rancher style townhome.
Mhm.
So selling smart when downsizing, a few things if you're looking at downsizing or right sizing your property, and just a few tips that work for anybody in the market. Anyone that's actually looking to sell is making sure, especially in today's market, that you're pricing for today's market, not looking at yesterday's prices. The market has changed, as I kind of alluded to earlier. We're not in the pre-COVID days. We had lots of sellers in the past that have listed at past sale prices, and we were in this downward trending market. So if you listed something based on sales even 6 months prior, your price is going to be too high for the marketplace. And even if your house is too high slightly, we find that buyers will miss out on that property. So pricing is number one. I mean, when you look at the marketing mix of when you're selling a property, you know, when you look at how much is based on price, how much is based on the marketing and distribution and all of those things, price is making up at least 80% of that marketing mix today. It's very, very important to be priced kind of bang on in the market. And we have lots of sellers that say, well, I'm just going to push the price a little bit just to test the waters. And you end up chasing the market downwards, even by pushing a price slightly. So, you know, pushing the price 1%, 2% doesn't sound like a lot. It makes a big difference. And it ends up costing sellers significantly. So lots of times people also say, okay, well, what happens when I'm showing my house and I have to live in my house? And that's a lot of work, and getting ready for showings. And, you know, it is a lot of work to have your house for sale. And it's a lot of work getting your house ready. And then you have to kind of be patient and wait. And then you're waiting for the showings to happen. And then when a showing happens, you know, you scurry around and get everything ready to go. And then you wait more. It is a patient market right now, as I said. But we have checklists again for preparing your house ready for sale. You're moving anyway, and this is something that Tamara and I say a lot to clients, is you're going to be moving. So go through room by room and pack up what you're not going to need for that next season. So if it's spring or summer, pack up your winter clothes. So keep your closets, you know, where they're nice and clear, but you're going to be moving those anyway. Your spare sets of dishes, if you've got 5 sets of dishes, which a lot of us, you know, when we got married or what have you, we ended up getting all these extra appliances or dish sets or what have you, and you just keep them for years, especially when we've got the space in these bigger homes. And now that you're looking at downsizing, you're not going to need all of that. So start going through those things now. As I said, we have a checklist to kind of go room by room, but the key is to kind of go room by room and get rid of those things that you're not using. Something that we'll often say is if you haven't used it in the last year, which of course you think, well, you know, if I haven't used it in the last year, of course I don't have things I haven't used in the last year, but it's surprising when you go through your house and go, have I used that, you know, that egg beater thing, or have I used this in the last year? And the amount of times we find things that we haven't used is remarkable. So anything you haven't used in the last year, you're probably safe to say you don't need it. So you can get rid of it. And again, you're not going to be the one hosting those big Christmas dinners and all of those things. So you don't need to keep all of that china and all of those extra, you know, serving dishes and that stuff. So get rid of that before you're actually selling your house. It'll make, when you have your house for sale, make it easier to get ready for showings, and it'll make it easier once your house is sold and packing up to move. Tamara, why don't you talk about buy first and sell first, the two bottom things?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tricky one, and a lot of people really struggle with it. It's very hard to give up something that you've been in, you know, even for a year, but for a long time, without knowing where you're going to go. So we have a number of people, particularly when they're right sizing, who are afraid to sell and you know, be homeless or not have exactly what they're going to. So they would prefer to find exactly what they want, and then, you know, sometimes people have the financial means to purchase anyway and secure, you know, a mortgage on that new property, or, you know, base it on the equity in their own home. Sometimes people will do an offer that's subject to the sale of, so they'll find the home that they want, and we've had a lot of people who've been looking, you know, they want that perfect place, and this is a big emotional move, so they find it. And the challenge with that, I mean, we do see a lot of offers that are subject to the sale of. A concern with that is, what, you know, that home, you know, that you find something that's the perfect next home. Well, there may be a lot of other people looking at it, because we're seeing a big demographic shift right now where people are looking to right size. So if you're successful in making an offer on that home subject to the sale of your current home, you may, and you often will, pay a little bit more for the house that you're buying, and then you're a very motivated seller to get yours sold, so you may end up taking a little bit less. It all comes down to somebody's comfort level. And sometimes it's been really good with people to find their next home that they want, and then do a very long closing. Perhaps that would work well for those sellers to say, okay, well, we're sitting, April 21st today. Maybe we don't move in until August. And then that's giving them some time to get theirs sold without making it subject to the sale. But it's risky. In this kind of market, some people aren't prepared to take the risk of possibly owning two homes.
Mhm. No, good points. And it is risky, and every situation is different. And I think that's the key, is just knowing what your situation is. And it depends what you're moving into. If you're moving into something that's assisted living or what have you, maybe you pay your deposit down and then, go from there. So
Mm-hmm.
when is the right time? Because we get asked this a lot as well, is okay, I know that I probably need to start doing this soon. And I know the last time we did this in person, we actually had our mom come, and she talked about, the right time. And she talked about sort of just from her experience, because they downsized a few years ago. And, I think what happens is, for us anyway, with our parents, we were encouraging them to, because we were like, okay, do this while, you're healthy. Do this while you guys can
Mm-hmm.
still do it. Do it while you're still doing it together. For them, I think that was important for them to do this next move where they could do it healthy and kind of, but enjoy the process together. So it wasn't just one of them having to do it on their own, or when one of them wasn't healthy or what have you. So I think when is the right time? It's probably never going to seem the perfect time, but I think as soon as you start thinking about it, it probably means it's the right time. While your energy is strong, while you can still be packing and sorting, and it's stressful. I mean, they say moving is
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the most stressful things and experiences you can go through in life, and I don't doubt it.
Mm-hmm.
We all it's not that we go crazy, but it's there's a lot of moving parts to it. It's again, as we talked about at the beginning, it's all those emotional factors that are coming, to hit us. It's the change and all of those things. So I think doing it while we're physically able to, where we're mentally able to, while we have help, if you've got family members nearby or
Mm-hmm.
friends nearby or what have you, and again, when you want to enjoy it, as we talked about with my grandma, I'm so glad that she moved when she did, and she had so many years there that she got to enjoy and experience, and it did give her that, another segment of her life.
New lease on life. Yeah.
Yeah, it did. And if she didn't do that move, she never would have experienced that, which would have been such a shame. So I think looking at it as there is community. A lot of times when people are right sizing, they're gaining that sense of community, and it's a new community and new people that you're meeting, and that can really be beneficial. So if you're already thinking about it, it probably means that you're probably in that time frame of, yes, it's probably sooner than you think. So a few things financially that we can look at. And this is something that we can dive a little bit deeper in when we're walking through this process with clients. We sit down and we sort of do what we like to call a SWOT analysis. And I know we talk about this as businesses often do a SWOT analysis. And I know Tamara and I do this for our business, where we look at our strengths, our weaknesses every year. We look at opportunities and we look at threats. But we like to look at this as when a family is looking at right sizing, it's the same sort of analogy. This is your family business in a sense, and you're taking on this move. So looking at it from the financial clarity, but also all of those things. Okay, what's the strengths of taking this move on? What is our equity? What are we going to have at the end of the day? What are the weaknesses? Some of the costs that we're going to have, that would be considered some of those weaknesses. What opportunities will we gain? And then, what threats there might be. But looking at the financial clarity is also a big motivation as well, is looking at, okay, what's our home worth today? What would we net after fees? So you're going to have, commission, you're going to have, you are going to have lawyer fees. If you're purchasing another place, you're going to have a home inspection, you're going to have some of those costs there. So what does that look like from the equity? Your moving costs, looking at what some of those things are, if there's any repairs on the new property that you're wanting to do, if it's a strata property, and understanding what some of those costs might be for that too. And then something which we'll touch on is reverse mortgage. That's something where you can take out a mortgage on your property. You don't have to pay any monthly fees back or anything. It just accumulates on. So you're paying or you're taking money out. So that's allowing you to stay in your home, and it's just adding on to your property. So you're kind of going through your equity that you own in your home, but you don't have to pay that mortgage back until you sell. That's a really basic way of explaining it, but there's no monthly payments. Lots of people like to look at this option. We find in talking to lawyers, many people look at
Mhm.
this option. When they start to understand the costs that are involved in it, a lot of people decide it's not for them.
Mhm.
So that's something that we can kind of walk you through. Your lawyer can walk you through what that looks like. And but we do find it is costly. And a lot of times when people start going down that process, they realize, well, I'm probably better just to move, and then I'm in full control.
Mhm.
And I know exactly what I have. So, always good to talk to your accountant, your financial advisor, your lawyer, and of course, we can certainly help you with understanding what the value of your current property is and what that equity might be. And that's something, we say all the time to people, we're fortunate because being realtors, of course, we know what, you're often your home is your biggest asset that you own. And as being as realtors, we always know, what our homes are worth because we're in the market every single day. And you're not. So we're happy to come in, do a quick walkthrough, let you know what your home is sitting at, even if you're not even ready. Maybe you're 2 years out and you're thinking, I do want to move, but I just kind of want to know what my home is worth. What's nice about that is once we've done that walkthrough once, we can update you that every single year. So that every year you kind of know, okay, has my property value gone up or has it gone down? And it's just a level of comfort. I love looking, and my husband does too, when we sit and, every year we look and go, okay, what's our property value? And I know people will look at you, get your assessment, but what is market value and assessed value are very two different things. So as realtors, we're always happy, and any realtor would always be happy to give you, an unbiased, updated opinion of value, and just so you can have that for your records. Anything, Tamara, that you want to add on that?
No, I think that's great.
Okay. Any questions? I can check in with anybody. If anybody has a question, Tamara, maybe you can just kind of keep an eye on that chat. If anyone, I know there's
Yeah.
no one in there right now, but if anyone has a question so far on this, please just post it in the chat, and we'd be happy to answer it as we go through. We will leave time for questions at the end too. Okay, so looking at comparing the potential, we talked a bit about the different potentials as far as the market and what they're doing in the market right now. Here just talks about, the pros and the cons of each option. So we get many people that look and go, I like having my privacy. I really like owning my property. I like to know that I've got that equity that's there for down the road when I want to sell. And so I just want to move into a one level living rancher. They're a little tougher to find, but they are out there. And we have lots of clients that do move into that. So they don't want to do with stairs, but they like to putter and have a yard and do a little bit of that. So that's the downsized house. The pros of the privacy, as we talked about, the equity. You are fully independent, which is great. The cons of that is you still have the maintenance, shoveling the driveway, mowing the grass. There's less social interaction. And I think that's a really big one, actually, as we look at right sizing, is people don't look at the social interaction, I think, as much as not that they should, but how much value that can bring to your life. And you don't have the same amenities potentially in a downsized house if you don't, you might know you're not going to have access to a gym potentially or a pool or what have you. But looking at condo or townhouse, pros, it's semi-private. If you own it, you've got equity, less maintenance, somebody else is taking care of all of that, much easier to lock and leave. The cons is, there's stairs potentially might be in those. As I talked about, some of the townhouses are 2 stories. You've got strata rules and regulations that you have to, be living under, and it's somebody else's rules that you do have to abide to. So no parties at midnight. And there's no meal service in condos and townhouses. There's just, of course, less services of what you would see in a senior community. And you are potentially, if you're in a condo, you've got somebody that's living above you. So there could be noise factors, some of those things. We do have a number of concrete buildings in Kelowna now, which is great to see. There are lots of great, well-built townhouses and condos where noise isn't going to be a factor, but it is something to be aware of when you're looking at properties. And we can guide you through that process as far as what properties are the ones that, are good buildings that are going to be a little bit more soundproof. Maybe ones that are a bit smaller, or maybe you want something that's a bit bigger. And what is the benefits of being into a condo development that's larger versus one that's smaller? There's lots of those kind of questions that do come up as somebody's narrowing it down into that. And then senior community. So, of course, like what our grandma moved into, she loved the fact that she got meal service. She didn't have to cook anymore. She would maybe make breakfast once in a while, but other than that, she got all her meals. It was very social. She had activities they would organize for them. There was staff there. So, if a health issue did arise, there was somebody there to help her right away. Of course, less private, not as much space. Pets are always something that can be a concern. There are many that allow for pets, but they do have rules as far as what pets are allowed, and there's no equity or ownership. And the costs of senior communities can be quite expensive. So that's just
Mhm.
something to be aware of as well. Any questions on that, Tamara?
I think I was going to add, because it's a big one that we see a lot of people curious about, and we're fortunate in Kelowna and West Kelowna because we have a lot of gated communities. So that's sort of a hybrid between a downsized house and a townhome, say. So we have a number of, they were Canadian adult communities, but that's something where you've got a detached home, usually a double garage. They range in size. On the smaller side, maybe 1,100 square feet. There are some communities with homes up to about 2,500 square feet, and you are part of a strata, but the yard is taken care of. There's often a clubhouse and some sense of community. It's a nice sort of stepping stone. We find people transitioning from a big house, but maybe not quite ready to go into condo style living, and or can't find a townhome.
Yeah, very good point. Okay, so a few things that we kind of just did talk about, but buying in a strata. So key things to consider is that contingency reserve fund. Is there enough for future repairs? So these are just some of this is a just little quick checklist to kind of jot down. Your realtor, if we are your realtor, which we'd love to be, we will certainly help you walk through this. Your lawyer will also walk you through these things, but contingency reserve just lets you know how healthy the building is sort of how I like to look at it. How much money do they have there in case there's something that comes up? Can they pay for it? Depreciation report. This is understanding, the costs that are going to be happening years down the road. So any capital expenses that building overall may incur. And then you can kind of gauge to see, okay, is that contingency reserve, are we accumulating enough in there to cover these depreciation costs as they come? It's also a great way to look at how healthy a building is, because it does look at the maintenance of, things like elevators and some of those things as well. So older buildings, that's one that you really want to take a watch of, is that depreciation report. Strata
Mhm.
fees and levies, we want to look at what's included. Sometimes the building might come that seems really expensive and you think, oh, the strata fees are really expensive, but not knowing that, maybe that includes your heat, your water, or some of those extra things in there, which is really nice because we do have some buildings that include some different things that other buildings don't. Parking. How many parking stalls does yours come with? And how important is that? Can you rent another spot? Because a lot of times you can, sometimes you can't. Some of these new builds aren't even coming with parking stalls. So that's something to just consider. Parking is a factor, and it's going to continue to become a factor in Kelowna for sure. The strata rules and the bylaws and the building history, looking at what the policies are for pets, rentals, renovations. Do you need to, every time you go to do a renovation, do you have to get authorization? How does that strata work? Looking at minutes, we always say go back for the last 2 years, and that'll give you a really good sense of the building. It'll let you know, is there anybody really grumpy in strata who's always complaining about things? You probably don't want to be living right next to them. So maybe find out what unit they're in. Or, just looking at the overall building, it will give you a really good sense. Is the strata well maintained? Some stratas are incredible and everybody gets along really well and they're well maintained. Some are, really strict and they might be really well maintained, but they could be very strict with their rules. Maybe you like that. So it's just depending. Everybody is different, but you'll get a really good feeling of the building by looking through those minutes and looking at those bylaws. Something too, I'll just note, because when we had our last in session, somebody mentioned that, when they bought a property and they had looked through the strata stuff, but hadn't paid too much attention to it. And when they had downsized, they had gotten rid of everything. So they got rid of all their rakes. They got rid of all their, they kind of were excited that they didn't have to water anything. They didn't think they'd have to be digging in the dirt. They didn't have to do any of this stuff. And, of course, they move into their strata realizing, oh, wait a second, I'm responsible for all my flower beds. So I'm not responsible for the lawn, but all my bedding and stuff. And they kind of actually wanted to do it, but they had gotten rid of all of their, any of their things that they could be working in the in the dirt with, I guess. So something to just read through the building, find out what you are responsible for as even a landscaping point of view. So you don't get rid of everything if you don't want to. Rental ratio, looking at how many of the properties in there are rented. Those are also some of the other things. So Tamara, anything needing to add on that?
No, I think, I'll just touch again because now my head's thinking about these gated communities. And something, an important one to be aware of is sometimes there are different rules depending on the different organizations, whether or not roofs and windows are covered by the strata or if that's up to the individual owner. And we've seen that in a few different developments where, perhaps they're 20 years old or 25 years old. Because you're paying a monthly fee, you would assume that if the roof needs to be done, that's covered by strata, like it would be in a townhome or a condo, but it isn't always. Sometimes they are and sometimes they aren't. So it really is paying attention, and having your realtor pay attention to all the little details.
Mm-hmm. Very smart. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so timeline. I had talked about even if you're 2 years out, have an evaluation done. If you're really considering looking at downsizing or right sizing, 12 months out, have a market evaluation because typically we see, and we do market evaluations a month out, 2 weeks out when people are ready to list. So there's not a rhyme or reason, a set time on this. But we find when people are starting to kind of look and think of right sizing, there's a lot of components that go into, your typical right sizer, which is moving from a big home into something smaller. And so because we want to walk you through that process and be there to sort of hold your hand through it, we say 12 months out is perfect because it allows us to do that evaluation. Then you can meet with your financial planner and sort of start looking at the steps as to, where are you going to move to? What does that look like? And it gives you lots of time to have your kids come and take out all of their stuff from your house. I know with our parents, they had all of our stuff in their house. And when they were downsizing, and they said, "Well, you girls, you got to come and pick up all your stuff." And we were like, "Well, why? Like you've had it for years. I mean, we've all been off on our own for many, many years at this point, but we had to go and, of course, go through all of our things, and that takes time. I know they were on our case to go and go through all the boxes and stuff. So it takes longer than you think when you've got a house full that you've had for many, many years, and you've got all your kids' stuff and everything else. It's nice to have a bit of time to kind of declutter, sort through those things. 3 months out, you want to have listing starting to get ready for the listing prep. We have a stager that comes through. So we like
Mm-hmm.
to have our stager go through, letting people know if maybe there's some minor repairs that you need to do, maybe some rooms that would be helpful to have painted. We walk through all of that with people and give them a really good list as to here's the to-dos. We have contacts for everybody, as far as you need a handyman to do some of these things, a painter, and our stager can help with, room color choice and those types of things. And also it's helpful to have her come at that early stage in case you're looking at getting rid of some of the furniture. She can sort of guide you as to, for staging your home, yes, it would be good to get rid of those extra chairs or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Really, when you're listing your house, we like to call it as though you're merchandising your home. And so how you live in your home and how you merchandise your home are very two different things. And we like to walk clients through what that looks like. And then, of course, a month out is the moving logistics. Okay, did you find where you're moving to? Are you going to have some clients that say, I just don't want the stress of it. I'm going to buy first, move in there. I know I'm going to own two properties and I'm okay with that. They've financially planned for that and it is easier. And so they actually move out and then we just stage their home with a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of minimal furniture and that sort of thing. By no means do you have to do that at all. It's relatively easy process to be going through living in your home as you're selling, which is what most people do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is the downsizing checklist. We do have this where we can email this out to anybody who would like, as well. So we find this is really beneficial. Is the biggest thing is, start with the rooms, um, go through room by room. So, toss expired items. This is again something you go through, and I don't know. I mean, I do it sometimes in my pantry, and I think, really? I've had this that long and it's expired. And, so going through your storage rooms, your laundry room, garage, closets, get rid of anything that's expired. Donate duplicates. We all have duplicates of things, especially when we've lived in our houses for a long time. And we don't need those duplicates. We definitely will not need extras of things. And keep only what you use on a regular basis. You know, your linen closet that has 5 sets of sheets, you don't need 5 sets of sheets. And you certainly won't when you're moving. So get rid of those
Sure.
other ones and donate them. We always tell clients to start a pile in each room. Okay, this is the donate pile, and then this is the keep pile, or this is the box up and I'm giving to family members or what have you. So start those kind of 3 piles. We have some clients that like to go through with little colored little tabs. And so they'll go through and they'll say green and red. So green is go, that means it's leaving, red is keeping, or however you decide to do it. And they just go through and put little stickers on everything. And they find that's really helpful to kind of start the process. It does seem
Mhm.
overwhelming, I know. Again, we kind of talked about this with kitchens. We keep way too many things, way more than we need. So keep 1 or 2 sets of dishes only, reduce your small appliances, keep only your everyday cookware, donate those duplicate utensils, and keep the meaningful serving pieces that you want, but you don't need to keep everything. There are companies that will come and pick up some of these things that you can donate those easily. We have a list of those. So, reach out to us and we can give you a list of all of those as well. Living room and family room, measure the furniture of where you're going to be going to. And this is where it is kind of handy to know where you're moving to, or at least have an idea so that you know what to keep. Some of those big dining room pieces, this is a big one that we see often, the big dining room cabinets, those aren't going to move with you. No matter where you're moving to, they're probably not going to fit. Rarely do they in the new spaces. And so, look at selling that. It's okay to sell that piece before you move and list your house. And sometimes it actually makes the spaces of walking through easier. So, comfort pieces, what are the non-negotiable pieces that you have to take? Your comfortable chair that you like to watch TV in, that's a non-negotiable. You're taking that with you. Good to know that ahead of time. Your meaningful art and photos, keep those. Something that's handy, we find, is people have lots of, memories and photos. They can't keep them all. Take pictures of them so that you've got pictures of some of those memories, and you go through the pictures. Maybe put together an art book that has them all together or what have you. But that's a little bit of an easier way to downsize, so you're not having to keep every single big framed photo, because a lot of times we don't really know what to do with them. When our parents were moving and we had a shredding party, we do a shredding party every once in a while where we invite all our clients to come and they can bring all their shredding. And so, we had the shredding party. It was right when my parents were downsizing, and our dad came, full throttle into there. He was loaded his car up with stuff to shred. He was so excited. He opens up the trunk and he starts just handing boxes. And I'm going through the boxes. I'm like, Dad, this is like my high school memories. Like I've got my grad's photos in here. I think I had my grad hat in there he wanted to shred. And I'm thinking, Dad, you can't do this. We have to go through this stuff. So take your time. This is why we say plan a year out to go through some of these things and give it to the appropriate family member. Maybe take photos, as I said, of those so that you can, maybe that the grad hat didn't work to shred, but you can get rid of those things. So yeah, bedrooms, reduce the bedding sets. I talked about that. Keep only the clothing that you wear regularly. Something that on our podcast we had Kim Appelt. So she's a designer, or I guess a fashion person who helps you with your clothing. And she talks about in her book is, if you have clothing that you're holding on to because you think you're going to end up wearing it one day, it doesn't quite fit, get rid of it. It was so liberating when I read that in her book, and she was like, if it doesn't fit, it's not going to. Stop waiting for it and thinking it's going to. Just get rid of it. And if the style, it might be that piece that you've had 10 years ago and you just loved it, but the style has completely changed, get rid of it. So, and it's true, it allows you that ability to go through and get rid of some of those things. So, of course, keep the memories that you love, but sorting through jewelry, accessories, getting rid of that stuff that you don't need. There are some great consignment stores here in Kelowna that take jewelry, they take accessories, they take bags, and they'd be happy to take it. And unused furniture, again, there's lots of companies that will come and pick up any of your furniture too. So. Bathrooms, this is expired medications, toss them, duplicate toiletries, keep only the daily essentials. I don't know about many of you, but I know our mom, and I'll speak for her, but she had, when they moved, she had different cosmetics of different name brands of things that she's had for years. And so she had to go through all of those and get rid of those things that she wasn't using. And I know we hold on to some of those and think we're going to use them one day. That blush that is, 10 years old, we're not going to use it. We can get rid of it. It's okay. But the bathrooms are an easy one. It's an easy one to start. We actually tell clients often, start with the bathroom because it's a quick win. You feel good about it. You can go through that quickly and get rid of those things that you're not using. It's also not normally an emotional room, so we can go through those things. Closets, try the hanger test. And that's when I think, Tamara, actually, you're the one that started this, is turn all your hangers backwards. And if you don't wear it in a year, so if you go back through your closet and it's still hanging backwards, you didn't use it in that year, and donate it. And keep only, as I talked about, the clothing that you feel
And that
to wear.
by backwards is instead of hooking it on the bar, because I've said it to a few people, they're like, what do you mean backwards? So it's just taking your clothes hanger, instead of hanging it the normal way, hang it the reverse. It's so astonishing. I do it quarterly and realize how little I'm actually wearing.
I know. It's sad, but it's good because we can donate it and somebody else gets to wear
Yeah.
it, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So paper and documents, this is one that people is stressful. I find this stressful, going through and thinking, okay, do I need to keep, we went through all of our papers, not too long ago, and I realized, oh my gosh, I have, utility bills from 5 years ago. Why do I have those from 5 years ago? I don't need them, but you feel like you do. I don't know. I did, but so go through those, shred what you don't need. A lot of things are now electronic and can be electronic. You can also reach out to your utility companies and get some of those saved to you, sent to you as a document as electronic, so you can get rid of the paper copies. Legal documents, tax records, keep just the basics that you need, the physical copies of, and digitize anything that you can. Receipts, manuals, photos, so much of things as far as manuals and that sort of thing are online now. We don't need to actually keep them. So just, shred it. We do shredding party, but if it's not a shredding party for us, is a company here in town that will come and take your shredding as well. Okay, so sentimental items, we talked about this too. A memory box is something that we've had lots of clients do, where they just take a box and have their really sentimental objects they put in there, and they have just a memory box. That's the really meaningful things that might be scattered right now throughout your home, and just put them all together in one box that you'll have when you're living in that smaller space. And you don't need to keep everything, keep what tells your story. And then the garage things, tools you'll use, seasonal decor you love, but donate anything else that you're not using. So a question which I love is, before packing anything, before you put it in that box, ask yourself, would you buy this again? If the answer is no, it probably doesn't need to go with you. So that is sort of all of those questions, or sort of everything with regards to right sizing. We do have a book that's a guide on right sizing. Many of you probably have a copy of that, but if you would like a copy, please reach out. We'd be happy to send you a copy of that. As I said, we did record this, and we will send out a copy of the recording as well in case anybody wanted to go through it again. Any questions, feel free to just put them in the chat and we can answer them right now. We've got a couple minutes. Oh, yes.
Thanks, Rochelle.
You're welcome. Yes, no problem. Thanks. Anything else? It is a lot of work, Bonnie, I know, but it is very exciting, and I'm so glad that you're saying that it's exciting. It can very much be. So if you have any other questions or need more information, just reach out to us. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We really appreciate it. As we said, if you have other questions, please let us know. And yeah, okay, that's it. Yeah, if any questions, then just let us know. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.